In the image, let me know.
Welcome to Krista Spiritual Talks. If you're new here, if you'd like to, please like and subscribe. Today, I'm excited to introduce Bente Hansen from Australia. Hello.
Hi.
Welcome. I'm going to go ahead and introduce your bio a little bit. There's so much to what you do. So for people listening, in the description, I'm going to put more of a description because there's just no way in this short period of time I could say everything you do. Australian Bente Hansen is an author and intuitive wellness consultant who has inspired clients internationally with her ability to reach their innermost soul and passion with her insight and keen abilities. Her interests in quantum energy and spirituality led her to seeing the understanding and interlinked and intertwined aspects of both. This fascination has been spiked by her ability to access the subtle etheric energies and from there to explore the real potential and depth of the human experience. That's a lot. So, well, since it's right, if you don't mind, I can ask a question right off the bat, just because we just went through an eclipse.
Yeah.
I would be interested in your interpretation of the energies or how you felt them.
Oh boy, how I felt them was basically for a whole week, I could do nothing.
Mm,
I was tired to the nth degree. And I think that from speaking with other people, they
hmm
had experiences that were relevant to their own energy field, because we are more than just a human body. We are an energy consciousness.
hmm
And for me, I had a lot of dreams. They made absolutely no sense. In that actual fact, they appeared to be nonsense. And I had coffee with two friends earlier. It's 10 a.m. here in Australia at the moment, and they were both saying the same thing. And the experience of the huge energy influx, which basically heralds the real beginning of the age of Aquarius if you're into astrology, and the beginning of a new year and a new epoch. What this frequency has done, it's gone into our energy body, and which of course affects the physical as well. And it's stirring up what's within us that is old and is no longer relevant to our consciousness being, because we are just simply consciousness. And so this morning over coffee, two people were saying the same thing as I experienced weird dreams. It was like a montage of memories and incidents, some of them from this lifetime, from other lifetimes, impossible to decipher. And it's
hmm
been a week of that in my little world. Quite interesting. I don't know how you experienced it, but this is a pivotal turning point in our human evolution.
I've
And
been
I can say
exhausted.
that
Yeah.
confidently.
Been exhausted. I normally don't go to bed at 6:30, and then also low-lying bit of anxiety that
Yes.
doesn't make any sense. It's like, oh, that's interesting. Not the most comfortable one to go through. I'll be glad when we're out of the energies. But I do
Well,
think,
see, what is,
yeah.
yeah, it's peeling away the layers of beliefs and programming, and also emotions and feelings that we've had that are not in alignment with the truth of who we really are.
hmm I've also experienced fears that I didn't even realize were there being released, which is really nice. Yeah.
hmm Yeah, I had an experience last night, if I may share, and it's my unique experience. Every person's experiences are unique to them. But
hmm
as I went to bed early again, no exercise for the week, I was just too tired. But as I went all set to go to sleep, and I realized I had a lot of tension. You mentioned fears. I had tension. I was tense on the inside. And then I felt tears coming up. And I'm going, what the heck was this about? And it
hmm
takes me right back to early childhood. I came in absolutely excited to be here. thrilled to be here. I had lots of invisible friends and I astral traveled and did all these wonderful things with them. And then basically that stopped because it did not suit the current paradigm and the belief systems of family, immediate and extended. And then I realized that my excitement about coming into this lifetime had been dimmed, dulled, and removed by the paradigm, by the belief systems of those who were adults and who I chose to raise me as a young child.
Mm-hmm.
And so this morning, this is a bit of woo-woo, we're going right into it. I sat down and I dowse, but I don't even need to dowse. I just checked that there was any veracity or truth to what I was feeling. I got a big yes, and then I just commanded, and we can do this, any of us can do this at any time. I sort of said, I release with love. And then I added a phrase or two. And interestingly, I felt a release of energy. I
Mm.
felt this tingling all over my body, like an old energy was moving out of it. This is how powerful we are. And I'm sharing that to explain that
Mm-hmm.
we are the power brokers. We are the ones who create what we experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, as I told you before, I've been wanting to meet you for maybe the last 15 years through a dear friend that spoke really highly of you. Um, so, on a personal note, I'm always curious, like, obviously, at what point did you start embracing more of a metaphysical life or realize that? I mean, did you know as a child and then, like you said, kind of dumbed it down and then later reawakened, or what was that experience like?
Gee, you would ask that question, wouldn't you? Okay. So I had it as a child. I used to have invisible friends, as most young children do.
Hmm.
It's really, really common, but in our culture, it's not really acceptable.
My daughter did, yeah.
And yeah, and they used to come in and I'd go traveling with them. And we would go to different constellations, different realities. And the whole time there would be telepathic communication. And I would learn a lot about the nature of creation and reality. And that stopped because my parents and family were very concerned about my mental health. And instead, I got early entry to school. Okay. And so I lived a regular life just like everybody else did. And the whole time, like many, many other souls, I felt like I was a stranger in a crazy reality. Nothing felt real, nothing seemed to gel. And about 35 years ago, I turned my back on my relationship. I walked away from it. Walked away from the relationship. I walked away from my career. I ended up moving. I, all of my friendships just went by the way. And as soon as I did that, those friendly, invisible friends and the voices came back. And that is what got me going on this journey.
Mhm.
I felt like a homecoming. I may have been ostracized by everybody I knew because I no longer fit into their paradigm.
Mhm. That
And
takes
I
a lot of
had to,
strength. Yeah.
yeah, I had to find a new way of earning an income. I had to move away. I moved away from the eastern part of the country to the west coast. And that was where it all happened. It started for me, yeah,
In Australia?
in Australia, yeah.
Okay. When you say the West Coast, I'm like, oh, yeah.
We have east and west too, you know.
So you're switching from a mainstream job and took the plunge in. Did you go straight into healing work or what kind of?
Oh yeah, yes. You know, it was almost as though there was something that was guiding me, and I'd like to think it was my inner wisdom but it was more than that. It
Mm-hmm.
was much more than that. And it was where for the first time I began to feel as if there was meaning to life. So I went into massage therapy, kinesiology. I trained in a lot of those, Reiki, the whole thing. And then I started channeling, which was another experience,
Mm-hmm.
and one that I didn't welcome because of my perception of what people would think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that was it was a tough time. I won't deny that. It was a tough time to literally walk away from everything that I had known. But it soon became apparent to me as I delved more into the natural therapies, and my intuition was working really strongly, that if I had remained in the old life, I would have left my body at a very early age due to breast cancer.
Mm. Well, I'm glad you made that leap of faith there.
Yeah, yeah. And this is one of the things that I've seen since in other women, that they will remain in situations where no matter what happens, they will not shift out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then they will have very often a health challenge
Mm-hmm.
or some other challenge, because their soul, for most of us, we've come in with a mission, we've come in with a purpose, and then we go to sleep and we live the normal life. And when I made the changes, I had no family support at all, none. And all of my friends found what I was doing was a threat to their perception of reality, and it disturbed them too.
Well, that's a good segue into the time we're in because there's so many different states of consciousness and the way people are perceiving what's going on in the world. How would you describe that, or how would you interpret what you see going on? Um, that's a big.
Okay, I had the experience, yeah. After I lived in Seattle for 4 years, in the Seattle vicinity for 4 years, and then by this stage, I was just following the guidance, go where I needed to go. And I had the strong knowing I needed to move across to the East Coast of the US. And while I was still there in Seattle in 2004, before I moved, I was getting some acupuncture from a friend who was a trained shaman. And there I was with needles all over my body. And all of a sudden, I felt this energy go through the solar plexus, and it went in with a whoosh. Now, I had needles everywhere. And of course, I couldn't move, could I? And I asked my friend who was a shaman, what was that about? And I can still see her face very clearly. She peered down at my solar plexus, lifted her glasses, and she said, that was Edgar.
Mm.
And I said, Edgar who? And she said, Edgar Casey. So that was the beginning of a relationship between the energy of Edgar Casey's soul that lasted from 2007 till 2012 nearly. And his energy moved into my body down the spinal column, and it sat there and it moved about, because an energy can be everywhere all at once. We're multidimensional. And I did a lot of public channeling, and it was, if your listeners and your audience know about Edgar Casey, he was, I guess you could call, a prophet. He would go into a trance state and he would be asked questions, and he would then talk about health largely. And I got to be very familiar with his energy. He taught me a lot, I'll be honest with you. But in the channeling that I did a lot of public channeling on the East Coast. he kept talking about the time of inner transformation. Now, at that time, I was convinced it was about the big changes in 2012.
Mm-hmm.
December 2012, there was a big shift that was supposed to happen. But I'm actually seeing it now. And that change would be where there would be a mass awakening in consciousness. And individual souls would have a choice as to whether they go with a mass awakening into a much higher level of consciousness, or if they choose to remain in a third density level of consciousness. But with this huge influx of energies that we're getting, it's creating a split in humanity. Is that how you perceive it? Because that's the message I kept getting, that there would be a real split, that there's no right or wrong about it. It's just that some souls would choose to move into a high level, into a new frequency. It doesn't mean that one is better or less than the other. It's just simply a shift in soul consciousness. And so in order for that to happen, there has to be a breakdown of the old cultures.
Mm-hmm.
There has to be a collapse. And if you look at it further and look at the procession of the ages, I don't know if your audience would be familiar with the yugas, the ancient teachings. Well, we've literally come out of what is the equivalent of the Dark Ages. That was the Kali Yuga.
Mm-hmm.
The procession lasts 26,000 years, where you go in an elliptical orbit. And so if up the top here is the highest level of consciousness, down here is the lowest level, which is the Dark Ages. That's the Kali Yuga. And that is what we have come through and out and are now coming out of. And we're going into the Kali Dwapara, which is also known as the Age of Aquarius. So this split in consciousness is predetermined. It has to happen.
Mm-hmm. I'd rather
And
be
with
on
it,
the upswing than the downswing.
yes, well, we are on the upswing now.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've come through the worst. But in the process, we literally, those of us who are choosing to go with it, will be experiencing something we've not really been familiar with. It's a whole new it's completely new to our culture, our way of thinking, our way of being. And so, it's a bit like when you do a massive declutter of your house, for example, and your possessions. You let go of the things that no longer resonate for you, that no longer bring you joy. You just let it go. And then you have to be open to new ways of thinking and being. And that
It,
can be very confronting.
well, if you're not used to the new energies, it's
You're
yeah.
not used to the new energies. You're not used to the new feelings. It's more of a, if you want to look at it another way, because this is happening on so many levels.
Mm-hmm.
We've lived through an era of reason, of logic, of mind thinking, mind functioning, mind creating. We're moving out of that and into, some people would call it heart, some people would call it love. It's just simply a state of being rather than always thinking and doing.
Mm-hmm.
That's another way of expressing it.
Yeah, it flows a bit easier.
Yeah.
One of the things when I was going, I can't remember if it was your website or one of your books, you were talking about earth-based spiritual communities. I was curious about what your visions were on those, or are they already here? I don't know.
Well, there are lots of people who've got plenty of ideas about it. Where I'm living, I see it happening, but it's
Mm-hmm.
happening with a lot of resistance from those who are still stuck in their old ways. We We've got people who have visions of being free of the controls of government and instead living with the law of the land. We have people who are moving away from the cities, because I don't live in a city. I live in a town now, which is really good. It's a small town and it's different to living in a city. And we seek the natural way of living, growing as much as we can ourselves, reverting to the simpler ways of life, to making our own potions and lotions for health reasons and wellness reasons. So this is what we're going towards. And, I think we're going to do it. I know we're going to do it. It's going to take a lot of work, a lot of letting go of old belief systems. Yeah. We're just starting.
Mm-hmm.
We really are just starting. But there are so many things that we can do to make it happen, step by step, just through our dreaming, our visualizing, our intentions, and letting go of our biases and prejudices and having more of an openness and seeing the beauty in everyone and everything. Sounds very idealistic, but that's what we're heading towards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You've got, I saw 6 books. Is it 4 or 6 books that you've written?
Look, one of them that was the new world of self-healing. I had that published in, when was it? God, must have been around 2000 something, 2001 maybe. And that was,
That's
I had that reproduced.
okay.
Yeah, because of the timing. It came out too early,
Mm-hmm.
way too early. So I got the strong knowing to republish that one. And there was another one I just wrote for myself. Basically, it's about my own challenges. It's called A Square Peg, and it's a personal read
That's the one I would
because
like to, I think that's really interesting because a lot of us on this path, it's not always the easiest to feel what we feel. And it doesn't always work within within our relationship. Um,
no,
the other thing that strikes me is they're all very different, so you're very broad in your gifts that you brought in, from channeling to self-healing, so promoting of empowerment of self, to Edgar, Casey, your own personal story, merging spirituality and quantum consciousness. Now, when you're talking about quantum consciousness, are you talking about the different aspects of ourselves, or maybe you could explain quantum consciousness?
it's more the fact that I felt very strongly that spirituality was being viewed by many people as simply like another religion or another faith system. And I was really keen to get away from that construct
Mm-hmm.
because spirituality is a state of being. And we live in a quantum field that's been proven well and truly. We are all one. And so when I hear people say, oh, I'm spiritual, I recognize what they are meaning by saying that. But it's no different to saying that I hold such and such a faith, or I hold such and such belief. And having had a lot of interest in history, I'm really aware that basically every belief system, whether it be a faith or religion or spirituality, has been thrust upon us by demigods. In other words, you know, The spirituality is an inner thing. It's not an external thing. It's just who we are. We are also quantum being, quantum consciousness. There is no separation of the two because all is one. And so even sitting on this chair at this table, that is part of the quantum consciousness. And I really was keen to break away from this construct that having a spiritual experience is different to being one with a quantum. It's not, it's all one. Everything is one.
I think that's why I resonated with the Native American community, because it's so profound wisdom, but simple. You know,
Simple.
it's just simple
Yes.
stuff, and just it's a whole different mindset. Like rather
Mhm.
than linear, everything's in circles, or cycles,
Yeah.
big cycles, little cycles. So even the way of thinking, we're not the center, we're part of the flow, because it gets
We
hard to
are.
get the mind when you get in the center.
Mhm.
And when you're
Yeah.
in the flow of it, it's much easier. Um, there's so many things that I look at ancient wisdom and I'm like, they had it going on, or
They had it going on. Yeah. And
we
I had the good fortune to be visited by some Arcturians in the end of the 90s, mid to late 90s. And they came into my healing room because I was doing all the natural, intuitive stuff then. And I was seeing clients with massage and whatnot. And they came in and they stood there and I looked at them and I'm going, oh, because by that stage I'd seen so many different entities and beings and I could read them and I was very discerning about who I connected with. But they offered to be my teachers. I'm going, oh, I guess you could teach me. I'm still learning. I'll never stop learning. And they actually, this is, via telepathy, they actually gave me two terms and conditions, which is unusual. And one of them was to stop reading books. Okay, that'll save me some money. And the second thing was don't go to classes or workshops. We will teach you. Okay. And this is where the quantum consciousness side of things comes in. And it was quite a lengthy process, believe you me. My intuitive psychic abilities just began to rev up so much. And they taught me all about the way that the human body works so that I could actually see inside clients and to understand what was going on. I started getting a slew of clients with the same condition. Then I get a slew of clients with another one and another condition. And then all of a sudden, whole complex conditions. And all the time, it was experiential. And I figured out eventually that everything comes down to the states of our emotions. It is our emotions, it is our programming, our beliefs that create complexity in our
Mm.
lives. And they can be easily just corrected like that. I used to see a lot of what I would call like a grid-like structure, like a matrix that weaves through everything, which is the ether. The ether, some people call it the ether. Nowadays, it's known as plasma. Everything in the universe is plasma. But I saw it as grid-like structures. I saw where there were blockages and interferences, and where there was in the body and in all of nature, where there's destruction and collapse of aspects of that ether or that plasma, that it would create certain conditions. And then through intention, everything could heal, could correct and heal. Unless, for example, in people where the soul had made a definitive choice to experience hardship and pain no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
But I also learned the power of I'm going to remain healthy for the rest of my life through my intention. I learned that there is nothing that is beyond our ability to heal, to create, to manifest.
I'm excited
And
to
that is
yeah.
that's the quantum field.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. And that it was powerful teaching.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really powerful. And even nowadays, I can sense in people, and I don't do a great deal of one-on-one energy work. I'm pretty much retired, but I'm not retired. You never retire from this. And I was just saying to friends this morning that, energetically and vibrationally, it can take 8 to 11 years for a cancer to come come into the body, but it doesn't come in. It is created through emotions and
Mm-hmm.
belief systems, and it can actually take, up to 11 years and for it to become apparent under a microscope or under medical analysis. But there's been an emotion or a belief system that has resulted in a cancer being evident.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's a
That's
lot more modalities that people are using, whether it's energy healing or acupuncture, just to, awareness around the energy field of the body and how important that is. And
yes.
pressing emotions, what that does, or fears, letting all that go is really, really important. So um, your work is definitely needed at this.
But you mentioned that you felt some subconscious fears coming
Mhm.
up.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is one of the things that I learned very early on is when there is something like an emotion of fear coming up, the mind can strengthen that fear by focusing on it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you can feel the fear coming up and you go, oh, okay, that's an interesting one. Maybe I want to explore it, but not give it too much energy. Maybe I can figure out where it comes from, but do I need to do that? Do I need to go back? Because in going back to issues, we actually strengthen the energy of those issues.
And then you start identifying as that. Yeah.
You're still identifying it as that, you're feeding it. And then the more you feed it, the stronger it gets.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you go, okay, there's some fear that's coming up. I am so grateful. I appreciate the fact that it's coming up and I now release it. And for me, it's always, I release it with love. That's my particular mantra. I release it with love and I give gratitude for what it's showing me.
Mm-hmm. It helped you survive till this point. So,
Yeah,
or what
it's,
then? Yeah.
yeah,
So, anything else that comes to mind that, I mean, that you would like to share? I know.
okay. There is something, and that came through from the public channeling as I did of the energy of Edgar Casey. The channelings I did were about the inner transformation process, which we are now going through.
Mm-hmm.
I would say to people, envision, imagine, and feel for yourself how you see your life. Do it as often as possible. And just very quickly, if you do it last thing at night before you go to sleep, there's something that happens. It's very powerful as you're falling asleep. During the day, it's our mind that dominates. And you can identify that as a masculine trait, a strong, powerful masculine trait. But just as we're going to sleep, it's the subconscious that awakens.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever we feed our subconscious is what comes through in our mind the next day. So if you go to sleep feeling fear, that is going to be reinforced the next day, and the
Mhm.
day after that, and the day after that. So as you're going to sleep, if you had a bit of a crappy day, rewrite it and say, well, that, so and so abused me, but really, does it matter? I'm okay with it. It's not my issue. I let it go. And instead, I'm going to imagine that that person embraces me. They might
Mhm.
be upset about something, so they said things that they didn't mean. And instead, I'm imagining them embracing me and giving me love.
Mhm.
And you can use this as a tool for manifestation. If you're choosing to reduce your headaches, you can say, I remember when I used to get headaches, but gee, it's good now. So that is the power of manifestation through intention. Go to sleep on a good note, and you'll become mindful of how easily your days become.
Or maybe even a vision board by your bed. So kind
A
of focus
vision.
what you want
Yep, but
and what you
but
don't
do it,
want. Yeah.
but do it with feeling. Don't
Mm,
go rote. Don't recite one thing after the other. Do it
right.
with feeling. Yeah, okay, I've got that new house that I was looking forward to, or that new relationship. Oh, wow, there's more money in my wallet. It doesn't matter. Do it with feeling
You
before
think
you go to sleep, night after night after night. And you can do all sorts of things like that. And you can actually help your body cure itself of illnesses and pain and suffering.
do you think we're at a time for those well, that it would be easier to manifest with these new energies?
Oh, rapidly,
Yeah.
rapidly.
Yeah.
You during the day, you have a thought, gee, you think of a person, they call you, and you think, oh, I really would like to try that dish. Boom, someone
Mhm.
says, let's go out for dinner, and there it is. If you know what I mean, it's just
Right.
there.
Synchronicities start happening and you think about something and then
Yeah,
watch something that answers your question, and it's pretty exciting. I love it.
it's awesome. It's awesome. And whatever fears, whatever resistances come up, just let them go with love, with the intention of being grateful for the experience, but now it's time for it to go.
I love it. Thank you.
My pleasure. It's
Well,
been lovely.
hopefully, in the future, you'd be willing to come on again. I really enjoyed meeting you. And for the listeners, if anybody has feedback, the comments are on of other topics that you'd like to see, that would be great. Any last words or no?
Just thank you very, very much. And all I would say to everybody is find the peace, find the joy that is within you, because that's going, we're not done with this process, and there's
Mhm.
still more to come external to yourself. So find the ways that you can go within and not be affected by it all.
Wonderful. Good advice. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Lovely to meet you, Krista.